30 seconds, my screen will go yellow, and then when the time is up, my screen will go red. It's going to be a little hard because your screen, you may not be able to track me on your screen. Because of that, Mark is going to have a little buzzer, and his buzzer will go off whenever you run out of time. There we go. So so if we are ready to get started, if there are no questions, I'll ask that everyone please make sure that you are muted, except for Yvonne and James. And if you're ready to get started.
Ready.
Ready.
Okay, great. Yvonne, please tell us about yourself and why you want to be the next district attorney.
Hi, Bill. Great to see everyone. Thank you for having us today. I'm Yvonne Rosales, native El Pasoan. I've been a practicing criminal law attorney for nearly 20 years now. I started my career as an assistant district attorney, worked there for several years, prosecuted many felony cases, and then I decided to go out into private practice in 2015, and I've been managing my own law firm since 2015, and I've been doing criminal defense when I left the district attorney's office. And I would like to be your next district attorney because I believe that there are some policy changes that need to be made in order to provide a more effective and efficient process within the legal system. I want to implement a mental health unit. I want to create a public integrity and a wrongful conviction unit. I'd like to prosecute animal cruelty cases more aggressively. And I just feel that overall, I'm the more qualified candidate. So thank you for this opportunity.
Hey, Bill, you're muted now.
I think still.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's James Montoya. I'm an assistant district attorney right now, and I want to be your district attorney for the same reason that I first became a prosecutor, to keep El Paso safe. I'm born and raised here in El Paso. I'm a product of Socorro Independent School District Public Schools, went to America's High School. After I graduated, I went to George Washington University in DC. I went to law school to be a prosecutor. I never wanted to be a defense attorney. I never wanted to be in private practice. I wanted to be the lawyer that helps the police, solve the crime, that fights for justice for the victims, and I wanted to do my part to keep El Paso safe. And so as soon as I graduated law school, I came back. I immediately started working at the district attorney's office in 2013. Since then, since 2014, I've been assigned to our special crime section, handling murders, major violent crime. I've worked on over 100 different homicide investigations. I've taken over 25 murder or capital murder cases to trial. So I feel very ready, very prepared. The next district attorney is going to have to be the one responsible for handling our most serious criminal cases that we've ever seen. The Walmart shooting, the man that killed Sheriff's Deputy Herrera down in San Elizario. I've worked on those cases. I work on them now, and I want to make sure we handle them right.
Okay. Our second question, and James, you'll answer first. What are your priorities and goals for the office?
Sure. So my number one priority, like I said, is to keep El Paso safe. We're very blessed for a city of our size to have relatively low violent crime. And the violent crime that does happen, we're able to solve a significant majority of it. Every year, the police departments across the country, the FBI releases what's called the clearance rate. It's how many violent crimes are solved in particular areas. Here in El Paso, sometimes that's 100%. We solve 100% of the murders that happen here. And I think that's attributable to a bunch of different factors. One of them is competent, trustworthy law enforcement. The second is that the community trusts our law enforcement. They trust prosecutors to get it right. And third is, I think, the hard work that we're doing at the district attorney's office to make sure that those cases are appropriately resolved in court. I want to make sure we keep doing that. I want to make sure my second priority is handling our most serious cases correctly. Like I said, the Walmart shooting, the murder of Deputy Herrera. We have a third death penalty case, a home invasion that happened on Thanksgiving in 2018. I've worked on all three of those cases. I'm ready to go. I want to make sure that they stay on track and that we resolve them as quickly as possible. And then my third priority is maintaining and building upon trust in our institutions. You know, I know one of the complaints that Mr. Esparza in our office has received about not necessarily being as transparent or aggressive on white-collar crimes, things like that. I want to make sure that we are doing that, because it's very important that we maintain our trust in our local institutions, and that's something that I'm very committed to doing.
Thank you. Yvonne, what are your priorities and goals for the office?
Okay, I just need to unmute. Primarily, we need to make sure that we have a smooth transition from day one, making sure everybody feels comfortable with the new policies and procedures, and make sure that all the employees know that they have an open door policy with me. And so part of the things we need to work on is creating the mental health unit. There are a lot of defendants that they're nonviolent offenses, and a lot of them are military veterans. So I want to make sure that we're not trying to criminalize these individuals, that we are working together with the community in order to make sure that they get the mental health treatment that they deserve. It's a huge military town, so I think we owe the veterans who have safeguarded us, we owe them the courtesy of trying to work with them in nonviolent offenses. Also, the public integrity unit, we want to make sure that there are no more wrongful convictions, such as in the Daniel Villegas case. We're going to do everything to be proactive, to do the best that we can within our abilities to make sure that these things don't happen. And just making myself available to the public. So my belief is that this is an administrative position. I have the necessary skills if I need to go into trial, but the reality is that I can't be pulled away from the office. In 28 years, Mr. Esparza only tried 4 cases. He was busy making sure that there was proper management within the office. There are plenty of attorneys who are fully qualified to handle all the cases that are presented to the DA's office, and I feel confident with them.
Okay. Yvonne, you will start with the first answer to the next question. You each have pointed out the experience or lack of experience in your opponent. Please tell us each how long you have been practicing law and approximately how many criminal trials you have handled in those years.
I've been practicing law for almost 20 years now, criminal law specifically. And as you know, Bill, being a defense attorney, it's a little bit different. Part of going to trial will be dependent on what the client says. So it's not always whether I want to proceed to trial. You know, in the last 15 years, it's whether my client believes that they want to go to trial or if they want to accept a plea bargain that's been given to them. It's what they feel is in their best interest. I have set several cases for trial throughout the years, and they have been dismissed. And I think that goes to my knowledge and experience on how to read a case and how to advise my client. When I was at the DA's office, I was going to trial at least twice a month. You know, they rotate your trial week. It's every other week that you are set for trial. And I did not have the opportunity I was not there working in felonies for for a significant amount of time where I would have gone into a specialized unit. The specialized units are typically reserved for individuals who have been within the DA's office for a few years after having worked through the misdemeanor system. As I said, I worked through misdemeanors. I graduated into felony court. And I was there for a couple of years in felonies, and then I decided it was time for me to leave. I just felt it was the best opportunity career-wise for me. I loved my time at the DA's office, but I just felt it was time to go for personal growth. And now I believe that it's time for me to head back there.
James.
Sure. So I've been licensed since 2013. When I became licensed in Texas, I was the youngest lawyer in the state of Texas. That lasted for about a year and a half before I aged out. Since then, I've had 50 jury trials since 2013. Of the 50 jury trials, about half, 25 of them, have been murder or capital murder cases. I'm very proud to say that I've handled some of the most serious and high-profile crimes that we've had here in El Paso in the last 6 years. During this campaign alone, I've tried, back in September, I tried Joel Garcia, the drunk driving boxer who killed Shannon Del Rio, Joshua and Isaiah Deal on Christmas Eve in 2014 on the Far East Side. I tried that in September. He was convicted. He was sentenced to 33 years in prison. Back in December, this past December, I tried Eric Duval, a Fort Bliss soldier who was running a drug smuggling ring on Fort Bliss. They were going out to parties and selling ecstasy to kids. One of the kids was stealing from him. He was a 16-year-old dropout. They took him out past Montana, past the jail, and they executed him with an AR-15. I tried that in December, in the middle of the campaign. He was found guilty, life without parole. I love doing this job. This is really why I became a lawyer. And I would disagree with the assessment that this is an administrative job. People expect to see their DA in court, and I firmly believe in leading from the front.
Okay, James, you'll answer the next question first.
Mm-hmm.
What is your experience managing a team and a budget in a comparable role?
Sure. So I will tell you, anyone that's gone to trial, and Bill, you can probably attest to this, trials are very large productions. I mean, you're coordinating scores, dozens of police officers, witnesses, victims. It's a massive production, to say the least. I have coordinated, like I said, over 50 jury trials. Administratively, I've been fortunate enough to sit on the board of Emergency Services District Number 1, which is it's a commission, a 5-member commission appointed by the county to supervise the Horizon Volunteer Fire Department. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to serve on that board for almost 3 years. During that time, we were able to get our volunteer fire department into a paid fire department, which led to 24/7 fire coverage for all of Horizon and Far East El Paso County. So it's not really a volunteer, it's a paid full-time fire department. And I would go to commissioner's court, advocate for a budget. The budget when I was there was a little bit over $1 million. We would advocate for our tax rate. It's the same kind of thing that I'd have to do as the DA. And so I feel very ready to manage a budget and to go and advocate for our positions and what we're doing at the El Paso County Commissioner's Court.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Yes, let's see. Like I said, I've been managing my own law firm since 2015. And during that time, we've had to conduct interviews, do performance evaluations, make sure that we're up to speed with employment law, have been able to give growth plans to employees who maybe weren't necessarily performing at the level we expected of them. And eventually, we work with them to try to allow them to develop their skills. So I've been managing a very successful law firm over the last several years. In addition to that, I do a lot of community service within El Paso. I have chartered 2 Lions clubs, and being part of Rotary, I'm sure you understand how difficult it is to actually charter a club, much less 2. And you have to be financially responsible. And, you plan huge galas and huge events so that you can raise money so that you can disperse those funds to the community. So it's a huge involvement. You have to be very aware of all the accounting and all the tax laws and things of that nature. And because of my time and experience doing these matters since 2015, I feel that I'm very qualified to handle the budget within the DA's office.
Very good, thank you. And Yvonne, you'll have the first answer. Oftentimes, prosecutors in courts feel that they are unable to make decisions regarding the disposition of domestic violence cases or DWI cases. They feel this way, other than the standard plea recommendations, without the authority of their supervisor. They feel this way because the supervisor wants to make sure that they do not do an improper disposition of the domestic violence or DWI cases. Is this a good or a bad policy, and why?
Okay. I don't believe in cookie cutter policies because it does not allow you to look at individualized cases. These cookie cutter policies that prohibit the attorneys from having discretion and how to work the case and management is an insult to them being attorneys. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars because you're not being productive, and that's what causes the backlog, the huge backlog that happened with the assault family violence courts. So my belief is that when you have somebody fresh out of law school and they start on those assault family violence and DWI cases, we need an experienced attorney, a supervisor sitting with them their first trial, working with them the first month to make sure that they know how to read and evaluate a case properly. And then during the second trial, they would allow the newly licensed attorney to take the lead while the supervisor is sitting there and just overseeing their work. That's why supervisors are there, to help and guide attorneys who don't have any experience. And once you've demonstrated your professionalism and level of skill, then you can, of course, with supervision, if you have questions, you can speak to your colleagues about recommendations. But honestly, this thing about not being able to deal with a case without a supervisor's permission is what's creating the backlog. So if we have our supervisors in the courtrooms working with the attorneys, making sure that the young attorneys get the proper training, I will have every faith and confidence that they will be doing what they need to be done in a just and efficient manner.
Thank you. James, same question. Do you need me to read it again?
No. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having some kind of standardized policy. The thing with DWIs and family violence, these are very important misdemeanors. They're misdemeanor cases, which means they're not felonies, they're low-level crimes, but they have the potential to be a lot more serious. It's our chance to find who's the abuser that's going to escalate, who is the repeat drunk driver offender. And it's hard. I mean, that's the toughest part of our job. And what's tricky is the lawyers that get saddled with these very complex cases happen to be the newest lawyers in our office, the quote unquote rookies. And so, you have people 2, 3, 4 months out of law school that are having to handle these very complex cases that have really high consequences. And the idea of having a policy, of handling these cases so that there's some kind of guidance to them on how they should be handling these. And we also don't want justice differing from one courtroom to the next. Just because a defendant happens to land in one courtroom with a different judge, with a different prosecutor, we do want, justice should depend on each case, but in other respects, justice should also be standardized. We don't want people getting disparate outcomes just because of the prosecutor that they landed with or the judge that they landed with. We want things to be somewhat on the same playing field. And so, I want to be able to trust my attorneys to use their discretion and empower them to do so.
Okay.
I have a rebuttal, Bill.
Okay. Go
I've
ahead.
got it 30 seconds. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So again, as I stated, proper training with the assistance of a supervisor who's there helping the attorneys learn how to handle these cases, I think will remedy these concerns that James has. And the reality is that sometimes you need to make adjustments. You can't treat somebody who has no prior criminal history the same as somebody who has an extensive criminal history. So somebody who's never had a family violence arrest before, let's say a DWI, shouldn't be treated the same as somebody who caused an accident and had double the alcohol concentration as somebody who only had a 0.09. So that's where discretion is important.
Okay. James, I'm going to let you answer the first question, this next question first. And Mark, queuing you up, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions after this next question.
Okay.
James, on domestic violence cases, currently, District Attorney Jaime Esparza and his team review every single case as it comes into the office, and in his name or Mr. Esparza himself, they put in an initial plea recommendation or at least plea guidelines on every domestic violence case. Will you continue to personally review every single domestic violence case yourself? Why or why not?
I think my answer to that is yes, I will. Certainly at the beginning, I want to be able to imprint on my lawyers, on my supervisors, how I think these cases should be handled. And so I think that's crucial, certainly for a month, 2 months, 3 months, me, myself, to review these cases, to let the lawyers know, hey, this is kind of what I expect from them. Are people doing their homework? I have no problem, dismissing a case. Really, I don't. If we did our homework, if the facts just aren't there, if it's a bad case, if we can't prove it, I have no problem dismissing a bad case. But if someone, it looks like they're a repeat offender, if the facts look really bad, we're going to make sure that case stays on our radar. And so certainly, I think at the very beginning of my term, if I'm fortunate enough to win, I do plan on reviewing those cases to create a base level of expectation for my office, for my lawyers, on how they should handle those kinds of crimes.
Okay. Yvonne,
I'm sorry. I honestly don't think that there's enough time for me personally to be sitting down reviewing every single family violence case that comes through our office. As a leader, I believe it is my job to make sure that we employ the best, most qualified attorneys, and that's why you have to delegate. That's why you have supervisors. So as I said at the beginning, we need to make sure that from day one, everybody's fully aware of the expectations I have of them individually, where my thought process is as far as plea bargains are concerned. We will certainly start talking about what is appropriate in each type of case and give a guidance so that a new attorney has a guide as to how things are managed and then they're manageable and what's important for each case. Family violence, you need to make sure that a defendant is attending anger management. For DWI, you need to send them to alcohol classes. So the expectations will be established as soon as we get into office, but you have to delegate because again, if you do have these huge cases like the Walmart case, I can't be away from the Walmart case if I'm reviewing family violence cases. That's what you have supervisors for. That's part of their job, to review these cases and provide their input. I will trust the employees that I hire because that was my decision. So if I hire them, I need to have faith and confidence in them. There are plenty of experienced lawyers in that office right now, and I trust their judgment if they had the opportunity to use that judgment.
Okay. Thank you. Mark, do you want to chime in? Do you have any questions you need to?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and start with Yvonne. How does your style differ from the current district attorney?
Again, we need to get away from these blanket policies. In family violence, every case file has the red writing, the infamous red writing. No PTD, no deferred, no anger management for dismissal. Basically, they're looking for a conviction in every single case. It may not be appropriate for every single case, and that's why the attorney needs to have discretion. So we can't be seeking convictions for people that are legally have the opportunity to not have a conviction if they appropriately follow all the plea bargain recommendations. I don't believe it's justice to want to seek a conviction on every single individual. In fact, it's part of the code that says a DA shall not seek convictions, but seek justice. Sometimes justice does require a conviction. So I want to get rid of these blanket policies, but provide adequate guidance. And if anybody has any questions, they can always come to our office. We will always be around. And make sure that we're available to answer any questions. And it's just more stylistically, I want to start implementing those mental health units, so that way we can treat individuals with mental health issues, alcohol or substance abuse issues, so that we can prevent a high rate of recidivism. We don't want people coming back into the system if they just had the opportunity to get the assistance and treatment that they needed.
Okay, James, same question.
So I think let me answer how we differ stylistically from telling you what I think Mr. Esparza and I have in common. And it's that we believe in accountability. I think people should be held accountable for the things that they do. If you commit a crime, I believe you should be held accountable. And I think him and I differ in some of the different crimes that we think are prioritizing. I will tell you one of the biggest ones where he and I don't necessarily see eye to eye completely are on marijuana cases. And I don't know if that's a generational thing, but up until very recently, we were still filing upwards of 2,000 possession of marijuana cases, misdemeanor marijuana cases every year. And that was almost 20 to 25% of our misdemeanor caseload every year. And to me, that just seems not a wise use of resources. I want us to be focusing, like I said, as we've been saying, the DWIs, the family violence, those kinds of offenses where someone's safety is actually threatened. I would want to expand the marijuana diversion program that we have right now, where we're trying to minimize the number of people arrested for misdemeanor marijuana possession. I think it's very clear where the law is heading. That's one area that we differ, different style. I think the other thing is I'm certainly very committed to making myself accessible to the public, to the media. I want the public to know what we're doing on our cases. Everything that we do is in the public's name. And so one of the things that I think we're a little different and something that I think we can be more proactive is explaining why we resolve cases the way that we do, why some cases we don't pursue, some cases we do. I think if the public knew more about us, that would be a lot more helpful.
All right, Bill, back to you.
All righty, wonderful. Yvonne, you'll have the first answer. What is your position on how to best resolve the backlog in our criminal courts, which COVID has only caused to explode?
So this is going to require a discussion with the judges to see how they feel comfortable. When you're talking about misdemeanor cases, currently the administration does not like trials to the court. So what that basically means is instead of having a jury trial where you impanel 6 people to listen to the evidence, I would offer the opportunity and put a policy in place where if the defense bar and the state, the assistant DAs are willing to present their case to the judge and the judge will hear the case, then they can make the determination of guilt or not guilt, rather than especially in small cases like a theft case, under $100, things of that nature. But if both sides want to reserve their right to a jury trial, then we can do that. And we need to talk about staggering jury trials so that one court maybe has Monday and then another court will bring in panels on Tuesday. We're going to have to do our best to try to stagger these cases. And again, I think by allowing the prosecutors to move these cases in a fashion that they feel is fair and just, by asking for community service, by asking for completion of classes, I think we can resolve a lot of these cases and they won't be going to trial, especially in the family courts for the assault family violence cases. When you get rid of that policy that says we're going to treat everybody the same regardless of whether they have a clean record or not, I think that'll help cases move along faster and eliminate the cases that are currently set for trial.
Thank you. James, same question. What is your position on how to best resolve the backlog in our criminal courts, which now COVID has only caused to explode?
I think, Bill, we're going to have to take a really careful look at what cases we actually want to take to trial. And if we don't want them to take them to trial, we're going to have to find some way to resolve them without it. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to resume trials anytime soon. I think we're not going to be back into the full swing of things until there's a vaccine, which, who knows, hopefully by the end of the year. I know that the Council of Judges is working hard on trying to figure out how we're going to start trials again. As I'm sure and for everyone that's not a lawyer, we need trials to happen. Trials make cases get resolved because sometimes people don't like pleading guilty. Sometimes people don't like dismissing cases until the trial is right on them. It's just hard. And then, like I said, there's always cases that have to go to trial. And to me, I think the priority is identifying those cases. If we can plead them guilty, we'll plead them guilty. If we got to dismiss them, we'll dismiss them. I will say I don't think that the number of people that are being detained in the El Paso County Jail, it's gone up certainly, but not to the point where it's unmanageable. We're just going to have to work a lot harder once we get a vaccine, and we're going to have to work with the judges to schedule more jury trials, because until that happens, I'm afraid that cases just don't really move themselves without that as a possibility.
James, what is your position on bail reform?
So I that term's been thrown around a lot. I think I'm a proponent of wide-ranging bail reform. I think there needs to be make it easier for us to detain very dangerous offenders. At the same time, we also need to be making sure that we're not holding someone in jail just because they're indigent and someone in the same position would be able to get out. I really don't want I think it's not right if someone is held on a misdemeanor criminal trespass, a graffiti charge for 3-4 weeks on a $500 bond that they can't make. To me, that doesn't seem right. And so I do think that is something that needs to change. I'm very grateful that El Paso County, we have 24/7 magistrates. There is someone at the downtown jail every day, all day, to review someone's bail. And so when they come in, it's not just set according to some list. There is a judge setting that bail for every case. I think that's a big thing. The other thing that I really think needs to change is, like I said, we need to, right now, for very serious cases, by the Texas Constitution, people are allowed a minimum bail or a bail is required to be set. I think in the federal system, bail can be denied upon a showing of certain dangerousness. I wish that is something that the Texas legislature would adopt. I would be in support of that, to allow us to detain dangerous offenders without bail.
Yvonne.
So we have to be very careful when we give an individual a PR bond, basically meaning that you don't have to put any money down. Bond is supposed to secure your return to court when appropriate and once your case gets set. So sometimes you do need a bonding company who can go out and help locate an individual in the event that they don't appear in court. And you need to be very careful who's getting these PR bonds and who should be required to, even if it's a split bond, half cash, half promise to return to court, because sometimes you do need the assistance of the bonding companies. I know myself, there have been instances where the information that was taken from the PR personnel, they did not include an apartment number, they did not have the right telephone number, they had the incorrect address, or they did not have a PO box. And that's where the use of a bonding company would come in very helpful. So, so for individuals who cannot post a cash bond, I'm recommending a split bond, just so that we have better security, especially when you're talking about violent offenses and serious crimes. We certainly don't want to keep anybody incarcerated simply because they cannot afford to post bond. But we can allow the DAs to agree to the PR bonds and maybe put different reporting restrictions twice a week, once in person, once by phone, or once via Zoom with our changing times. So we need to have better contact and make sure that we can secure the return of these individuals. We need to be very careful about allowing PR bonds bond for somebody who has no ties to the community. There are a lot of people that go away for small crimes like theft, and then they're just left pending in the court system, and they show as unresolved. So I'd like to make sure that we resolve as many cases as possible and not lose somebody simply because they left town.
Okay. We're getting down to the last
closing arguments, right?
Yeah, we're getting down to the last set of questions here.
Okay.
Last question, and then after this will be the closing arguments. Yvonne, what question would you like to ask the other candidate?
Oh, wow, you guys didn't tell me to be prepared for that. So, my goodness, you caught me off guard, Bill. Can I reserve mine?
You can pass.
Oh, gosh.
Or go second.
So, Mr. Montoya, you've only been a licensed attorney for 6 years, and being a prosecutor is the only thing that you have known in your career. Do you honestly feel that that those are the best qualifications for the new district attorney?
Yes, I do. I feel without reservation that I am the best qualified to lead and manage this office of 90 other prosecutors, 100 other staff members, a budget of over $16 million. I have the competence, the passion, the integrity to lead this office. You know, I love learning, I love reading, I love public policy. You know, I love spending my weekends at work. I love going to trial. This is why I went to law school, because, you know, I'll tell you this, a few years ago, some folks asked me to run for city council, and I gave it some serious thought. And, you know, it's an important job. The roads, the parks, the property taxes, all of that. I get that. But to me, that's not what motivates me. This is the work that motivates me. This is why I get up out of bed every day. I love making this community a little bit safer, one case at a time. That's the same attitude and passion that I'm going to bring to this office. You know, the DA, I strongly disagree with your assessment that the DA is simply an administrator. The district attorney is a leader. They're expected to lead. And frankly, I don't know how you could give assistant district attorneys advice and confidence when you haven't been practicing and handling these kinds of serious cases. I have, and people trust my judgment. My coworkers come to me all the time, and it's very, very flattering, and I'm grateful for their support.
Okay, James, what question would you like to ask the other candidate?
My question for Ms. Rosales is, you know, you've been practicing. You left the district attorney's office in, I think, 2003 or 2004. You've been out on your own since then. How many felony jury trials have you actually had in that time? I mean, when was the last felony jury trial that you had?
As I stated earlier, James, as a defense attorney, it's not my call, it's a client's call. So the last 5 cases, felony cases that I did set for trial, which were aggravated cases, weapons, those cases have been dismissed on the day of jury trial. So I think that speaks volumes to my experience in training, where I was able to provide guidance to my client and advice. They counted on me to make sure that they did not have a conviction. They trusted my advice because it's a felony. So when they counted on me to give them the appropriate advice, the best legal counsel I could based on my 20 years of experience, it ran in their favor. Those cases were dismissed. So I proved to my client that I knew how to assess a case. So my clients are satisfied with my work, and as long as they're happy, it's very different for a defense attorney than it is for a prosecutor. A prosecutor can set every single case for trial if that is their desire. That's not the privilege that is afforded a defense attorney. A defense attorney has to do what their client wants based on the advice, the sound legal advice that we've given them. And they've trusted my judgment, and we've had very successful outcomes for them, and I'm proud of that. I went to law school to be a lawyer, to help whoever was in front of me, whether it was as a prosecutor, I advocated for victims, or as a defense attorney, I made sure that my clients' rights were not violated and that the Constitution was upheld.
We're out of time now.
You want to give them a chance to have closing arguments?
I think we're already past time, so I prefer to just wrap it up.
Okay.
All right, guys. District Attorney candidates, Yvonne Rosales, James Montoya, thank you so much for being part of the Rotary program today. And this is a very important time for us. And we're going to encourage everybody to go out there and vote. And as you're going along your day and your work and everything, keep Rotary on your mind. So thank you very much. Let's give them a big hand.
Bye.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us. Enjoyed it.
Thank you both.
Mark, Bill, great job putting this together. Hey guys, next week's Zoom speaker is Doug Poland. Great job, Mark, putting this together. Director of the Plaza Classic Film Festival. And that's going to be very exciting because the challenges that we have, I was delighted to see that the Classic Film Festival has not been canceled. Instead, they're adapting, they're changing to the times. So I hear that there's going to be a lot of drive-ins, and that's exciting because that reminds me a little bit of my childhood. So I'm interested in participating in some of that. So look ahead for next week. Everyone have a safe 4th of July, and I'm going to reach here for this bell. And Rotarians, remember Rotary opens opportunities, and we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Thank you very much.